Hey Leo, it's Nicole from Outer Inner Space, and in this video we're talking about your chart ruler and some ideas which I've received which are relative to your timing and I guess just what I can explain as like a base tone frequency. So understanding the essence of your chart ruler, which for you is the sun, and tuning back into some of the qualities that I'll discuss in this video and some that you can extrapolate on yourself as you listen and as you digest this in the coming days. I think the chart ruler gives us this base tone to which is closest to a frequency that is most authentic to us. And while all the placements in your chart will show aspects of your timing and your energy, because time moves in spirals and some days a certain aspect or a certain placement or a certain house is more predominant than the other, the chart ruler is like, I could say, like your main spirit guide. So it's the one to tune to, because your ascendant is like how the rest of your chart is established, and when you go back and look through the eyes of your chart ruler, you can kind of like cut out all the extra stuff that comes from the outer world and tune back more into what is true for you on the inside. So because we're multi-dimensional, having this is like something to fall back on. It can really help you sort out like what's yours, what isn't, and just give you a better sense of, you know, the energy that you have to play with here in this lifetime. So we're going to be talking about timing and expression essentially. So the first thing I would say would be to look to where the sun is in your chart. For you particularly, because the sun is your chart ruler, it's going to have a conversation to say. So the sign and the house is going to give you a lot of information, and then tuning that back into some of the things that I'll talk about in this video, because it's going to be different for everyone. It's worth just like meditating on that for half an hour and taking some notes. That is where your sun is located and the energy of the sign that your sun is in, because with the sun as your chart ruler, these qualities they contribute to your aura basically. I have written here, you're a mini sun to others. So you've come into this world with the sun energy imprinted in you, like everybody has that in some way, but for you with the sun as your ruler, it is quite a beautiful thing. So looking at the cycles of the sun is up half the day and it disappears half the day. So just that in itself, there's a time to shine and there's a time to rest. There's a time to be forthright and expressive. And there's also a time to withdraw and let the lunar energies take over, because it's the balance. I did a post recently about synthesizing the axis, and for you, the sun and the moon being opposites, it is important to make note of this natural qualities, these cosmic forces, because as a Leo Ascendant, the sun, it's like you're expressing the energy of the sun as you go through your day-to-day life. And we'll talk about this a bit more, but what I feel for Leo Ascendants, so the sun has a bad rap. Like ever since I was a kid, it's like fear the sun, cover up from the sun, it's dangerous. But I think that is a control mechanism, because I feel that the sun is a source of information and power. Without it, everything in the world would be dead. The sun, the energy of the sun, I find is an information source. So basically time for anyone, not just you guys, but especially for you guys, time in the sun, absorbing the rays, like consciously, of course. I'm not saying go out and sit in the sun for 10 hours a day and, you know, everything is balanced, but it's a life force. So you can see how flowers open when the sun is out. It follows the track of the sun in the sky. So for you have this incredible ability to simply by being, without even saying a word, if you're in alignment, you can literally express information just by being. And this is what I have here about multi-layered data. Like, you could be there in your energy saying one thing, but the information that the person receives comes from your energy and not your words, because it's like a radiant source, right? So for you, spending some time in the sun and understanding what it actually means to be a mini sun to others and just as an essence in this world, you can tune into your power, which isn't power as we know it. It's an expressive energy that's subtle and silent, and it doesn't need words. It's your aura, it's your energy field. It is speaking in volumes without saying anything at all. So as a Leo Ascendant, you are fixed fire energy. There's a reason why strength in the tarot deck is attributed to Leo, is because there's this enduring burn that's within you. Fixed fire, if you think about that, that's like a constant flame. There's a burn inside that's a passion, that's light. Light travels so fast and so far, it overcomes boundaries, and that requires a certain level of power, because you kind of have to know it true inside of you. And when you know that, when you have that understanding of what is true for you, and this comes from spending time in reflection and in your own energy and understanding the energy that's yours and that isn't. And I have a bunch of information on my website about, what's yours and what isn't. That's a huge thing for me when it comes to being truly expressive and honest in integrity. When you've done that work and you understand what it is that you stand for, it's something that no one can distinguish in you. It's a very unique thing. And with Leo and Aquarius, that opposite axis, authenticity is key. It is so important. So when we're operating in this world and we're subject to the conditioning of our childhood, which is another key factor for you, Leo, as the fifth house and the child and our true expression. If there has been pain in your past relative to your self-expression, whether it was, suppressed or ridiculed when you were young, this is going to be a huge factor in how you operate day to day, like a rain cloud over it, and the sun is obscured because you were taught that isn't okay. And I don't know if that is the case for you, but what is the case is that happened. If it did happen for you, that was out of your control at the time because you were a child, but now you can take on the responsibility as an adult and do something about it. And the idea is that for you, the fixed fire, like, it never would have gone out. It just would have been reduced to a candle flame. So it's about using the ideas maybe in here, or just understanding your astrology through any other means, is finding that flame again and then adding fuel to that flame bit by bit. Not a big gasoline pour onto it, but just daily compounded efforts of throwing some wood on the fire so that it builds, right? And once it builds, you radiate. And then this whole energy field around you starts to change. It starts to glisten. People start to see it. And then you become this sun. It's really quite beautiful. But again, with the Aquarius axis, it requires, and the moon, again, with the sun and the moon, it requires an understanding of the cycles, and it can't always just be bright lights and expression. There is the time, like I've got here written, for every show there is a behind the scenes. So if you think of Leo as the star of the show, there's time that goes into rehearsal, there's time that goes into understanding the lines, methodology of knowing the character that is the role that you're playing here on Earth. It's in the front and it's behind the scenes, and you won't always express everything that is you to the world. Like, any star won't be fully transparent in the sense of, like, they're showing up in a certain role. And I'm not saying that's bad. Everybody in the world plays a role. We're a daughter, we're a mother, we're a son, we're a brother, we're a teacher, what have you. So it's of understanding, again, like, time moves in spirals. So it's not always up, up, up. The sun isn't always up. It's, it's moving, it's changing, it works in cycles. But the important part of it is tending to that inner fire, understanding where your passions lie, understanding if you have been restricted or repressed in your expression, how that happened, doing the work to understand was never against you, it was for someone else, but coming back to you, because with fixed fire, you can honestly burn through anything. And as time goes on, that flame is just going to be, it's like, you know how when the bonfire goes out, it's hot still for days, like that kind of thing. So absorbing sun rays for information is a wonderful practice for Leo Ascendants and for everyone, honestly. But just spending a few minutes outside on the ground in as natural an environment as you can find and putting your face to the sun and being there without thought, just sitting and absorbing the heat, noticing the warmth on your skin, letting the sun penetrate you. So this will be a hard one for anyone else who is conditioned to believe that like sun exposure is going to lead directly to cancer. I think that is a huge, I don't want to talk about that, but I think that's a problem. But spending this time, if you spend this time honestly for a week, tell me how that changes your energy. Like, tell me if that makes you feel more you, and I would really love to hear if that really does make a difference for you. So it's not like you're trying to get anything, it's just being open to what information is trying to be transmitted to you from the sun. So confidence and willpower, for some people this comes easy. I'm not going to stereotype Leos and say that this is an innate power within you. I mean, it's something that I think is subject to conditioning again, but this little man I have here with the spiral coming out of its solar plexus, I am a big advocate for doing body work and understanding that in your body we have stored energy and stored trauma, stored memories, and when they're not processed, they stay there and they can act as blocks to our operating system. So for you, working on the solar plexus at like the apex of your ribs and just below, working on breathing into, past and through that area, and noticing if there are any blocks, and absolutely no shame if there are, because these things happen in ways that are very unconscious and out of our control. But what is in our control is if we tend to these areas and consciously move breath there, because breath can change these blocks, it can disrupt the patterns. So basically what it is that when we store these emotions, it's like an energetic pattern that plays out, and it'll repeat itself through life experiences, because this little, if you think it's like communication between cells, say if we're talking about confidence, right? And say you are an artist and you shared one time something that you've created to someone and they laughed at it, for example. So here we have one stimuli of showing your art to someone, and then this other stimuli of that art being shamed. And then there's a conversation between these two things. So every time you go to show your art to someone, there's a fear of that shame. So this is like a conversation between 2 points. And this is how it is structured in your mind as neurons talking to each other, but it also gets stored in other parts of your body relative to how that relates to that area of your body, like the chakras. Basically what I'm saying is if you tune into the solar plexus and your sacral chakra, this would actually be relative to, and your heart as well, like they're not exclusive, like anything in your body is all interconnected. Like you can't just like tend to your heart without also tending to your root, without also tending to your crown. It's all connected. But just noticing if you do have a blockage there at the apex of your ribs just below, you can work to disrupt the pattern. And that's where breath work comes in, because with breath we can change the physiology there. We can send breath there and it disrupts the established pattern. This pattern has been compounded throughout your life, so it takes daily consistent work to undo this, and it does take time, because it didn't take a minute just for that wound to be there. With that as well, be open to traveling in loops. The creative process is never linear. So this kind of healing, it isn't something that you just do once and you finish. It's a compounded thing. You have to work at it. And it'll be like a thing where if you work at it a bunch of days in a row, you kind of break through one of these blocks and you don't have to deal with it too much, or dealing with it just becomes a process of maintenance and not so much something to overcome. For you, as a Leo Ascendant and 5th house energy, creative immersion is so healing for you. If you're finding that you aren't being received in the way that you wish you were in the world, like you feel like your authenticity is not appreciated, if you feel like you're not the star of your own world, and that is in no way egotistical, like we're all the center of our own universe, because what is happening inside of us is creating our outer reality. So when we're not tending to our inner world by doing things which really does make our heart happy, we're completely ignoring a part of ourselves, which is what caused the blockade in the first place, you know, that feeling of being ignored or unappreciated. So it all starts with doing it for you. So if you are healing any heart or creative, emotional, expressive trauma, or just wounds or damaging energy patterns, like it's all the same thing, creative expression, and it doesn't even necessarily need to be for anyone else. Actually, it's better if it's just for the audience of you, can be amazing at throwing a spanner in the works of that established pattern of my art isn't good enough, or my expression isn't appreciated, or my voice isn't being heard, things like this. And that's what energy redirection is. It's for an example, if you present a project and no one gets it because it's a lot of information that maybe takes a little bit to unravel, like it's that different, it's on a completely different wavelength to somebody else. It's about going back to you and being able to see the pure intention and that having to be enough. And when that is enough for you, it'll be perfect for everyone else. So it goes back to that enduring fire, about it being so strong in you that and when you start to build that, it comes through in your art, it comes through in your work, it comes through with the things you say, how you dress, how you present yourself, the role you play. It really can be such a beautiful thing when you give that to yourself first. And you have to understand too, with the information from the sun, it's not like an instant thing. It can be, but if you consider how a plant grows, it takes daily exposure to the rays of the sun, and it's a process. The photosynthesis is a process. The energy gets stored and collected by the plant or by you, and then in time, when the timing is correct, and again, timing works in spirals, and there are so many spirals that are happening all at once that there will be a time for this here and that there and this then and this later, but it all is in perfect timing. So when you take the time to really tune into that enduring fire within you, that sun energy, when you're absorbing the sun rays, when you're really understanding that the sun is a source of information. When I say information, I do mean data, but information can be information that is stored in a painting, and when somebody sees it, this whole other story comes through, right? This is the energy of the sun, of the Leo expression. There's so much more going on than what appears on the surface. So when you tend to that inner fire, when you tune into these sun energies, when you work in cycles, not expecting to be seen 24 hours a day because the sun isn't, when you do create, when you do express, and when you do it in right timing and in a way that is completely authentic to you, in a sense that you're not doing it to keep up with anyone, you're not doing it according to anyone else's timelines, you're not doing it to anyone else's standard. Here I'm talking about, say, like posting every day or posting every week even. When you're doing it in a way that you know this is the time for the flower to bloom, then when your artwork is seen, when your expression is delivered, it says so much more. This all comes back to healing the heart, healing the solar plexus, that whole area there, this middle of your chest. If you can work on breathing, on your breath work, sun absorption, what would be absolutely awesome is, if you're in an environment where you can do this, is to having sun directly on that part of your body and then consciously breathing through that part of your chest. The information goes the information from the sun goes directly to your inner sun, your heart, and in time it just infuses the area, and then you'll feel this energy starting to move, starting to break up old shit. It's really a beautiful thing. I'm going to leave this video here, and I hope this was helpful, and it really is just a decision that you make to be you and just let everything else fall away, because you're the star. Thanks, Leo. Bye.